My bivariate presentation for Pol242 looks at support for social welfare. The focus of this research is to look at what factors inform an individual's level of support for social welfare. The purpose of the research is to examine 3 possible independent variables and their implications on support for social welfare. These independent variables are an individual's party affiliation, whether an individual or someone in his or her household owns property, and finally, whether an individual believes the government should or should not act to reduce income differences. As you can see, the data set used is the Canadian Election Mailbox Survey of 2011. The reliability analysis used tools like Cronbach's Alpha, bivariate crosstabs, chi-square, and the analysis of variance, also known as ANOVA. Before beginning my research, I came up with 3 hypotheses and also consulted some of the current literature on the topic. My first hypothesis was if you vote conservative, then you will be more likely to oppose social welfare. This rationale is supported by a 1995 study done which showed that conservatives take the lead in funding for national defense but come in 3rd place when looking at funding for social welfare. My second hypothesis was if you own property, then you have some level of income support, and so will be less likely to support social welfare. And this is supported by a 2004 study by Erickson and Matthews, in which they found that if a respondent had lower levels of income, then he or she would be more likely to support social welfare. Finally, my last hypothesis was if you believe the government should act to reduce differences in income wealth, you would most likely support social welfare. And this is supported by Sharp and Kapluck's 2012 research paper on redistribution in Canada that included the negative effect of rising inequality on social welfare. For the purposes of my research, and in order to more effectively measure what factors influence an individual's level of support, an index was created which included 4 indicators. These indicators, which are how much the government spends on education, support for the unemployed, old age pensions, and health, rendered an alpha score of 0.6358, which is above the standard threshold of 0.6, indicating that the indicators are related enough and thus suitable to form an index. Moreover, if we look at Table 1, we can see that if any of the 4 indicators are omitted, our alpha score is actually lowered. The frequency analysis of the raw index is displayed, showing a mean value of 14.2 and a skew of 0.2, indicating that the majority of respondents moderately supported social welfare. The standard deviation value of 2 shows that there is quite a bit of dispersion around the mean. The raw index was recoded, as shown in Table 2, into 3 categories ranging from low to high, and were roughly based on cumulative percentages as seen in the table. The low category represents low support for social welfare, and the high category represents high support for social welfare. Table 3 illustrates a cross-tabulation of support for social welfare by conservative voting patterns. As you can see, both the chi-square and ANOVA test provide very low p-values. With reference to the chi-square value, the p-value indicates that the differences in the dependent variable across the categories of the independent variable are highly unlikely due to chance. Thus, the relationship is statistically significant, meaning that it is representative of the general population. Moreover, the tau C score of negative 0.21 represents a moderately strong negative relationship between both variables. Visually, we can see that this is supported by the fact that the bulges in the table follow a pattern from the bottom left to the top right. This means that as support for social welfare decreases, the chance a respondent will vote conservatively increases. Table 4 shows a cross-tabulation of support for social welfare given you own property. Once again, the chi-square and ANOVA tests render very low p-values, which means that this is statistically significant. However, the tau C score for this relationship is much lower, rendering a value of 0.064, meaning that there is a slightly weaker positive relationship between my dependent variable and my second independent variable. My final crosstab is shown in Table 5. As you can see, both the chi-square and ANOVA tests rendered low p-values, indicating that the relationship observed is statistically significant and thus representative of the general population. Furthermore, the tau C score of 0.21 represents a moderately strong positive relationship, indicating that as one variable increases in value, so does the other. This is supported visually by observing the column percentages across rows. It can be noted that the bulges in Table 5 follow the main diagonal, indicating a positive relationship between the two variables. As you can see from the conclusions drawn, my data analysis showed that the two primary factors that affect an individual's level of support for social welfare are his or her party affiliation and whether or not he or she believes the government should have a role in reducing differences in income wealth.